Hello, this is Todd Luck, and back in the day, Marvel Comics was the king of adapting movies into comic book form. You can see over my shoulder The Land That Time Forgot from the 1970s. In the 80s, they were doing adaptations of everything from Blade Runner to Return of the Jedi. But in all of the hallowed history of Marvel Comics, there has only been one Marvel Super Special that was made by elves. This is a review of Marvel Super Special number 39, which adapts Santa Claus, the movie from 1985. And it is made by elves. It says it right there on the back cover. Stan Lee wouldn't lie to us about that. Now, this isn't The Santa Claus starring Tim Allen. That movie would come many years later. This is Santa Claus, the movie from 1985. And so if you haven't heard of this movie, don't feel bad. A lot of people have forgotten it existed or don't know about it. Heck, I think my dad's forgotten about this movie, and he's the one who took me to see it. The movie is from the producer of the Superman movies, who was hoping to do the same thing with Santa Claus, take a big iconic character and make a major motion picture of them. And it's directed by the same director who did Supergirl. The movie begins long ago with the origin of Santa Claus, and it follows his character throughout the centuries and eventually lands on a modern day story that involves an elf named Patch, who is played by Dudley Moore, who is trying to modernize the way that the elves make toys, but that doesn't work out. And so Patch leaves the North Pole to try to go prove himself in man's world. But unfortunately for Patch, he falls in league with a morally dubious businessman played by the wonderfully over-the-top John Lithgow, who manipulates Patch into an attempt to take over Christmas as a money-making venture for his own company. But you're not really here for the story. There are some good performances here. David Huddleston, who plays Santa Claus, is my definitive on-screen version of the character. But what you're really here for are the visuals. This is a feast for the eyes. The massive, intricately made sets, the hundreds of extras they have playing the elves. It is just a sight to behold. Not to mention the real and animatronic reindeer and flying effects. And they let the camera last on the shots long enough for you to take everything in. They do a great job of choreographing everything and framing everything so you get all the visuals, all the color, all the magic in the movie. And all of this is set to a soundtrack by Henry Mancini, best known for the Pink Panther and Peter Gunn theme songs. So it's not a perfect movie by any means, but it is an entertaining one. And just like any blockbuster of the time that was aimed at a general audience, it got a storybook. It's filled with over 50 photographs from the movie. It has some interesting backstory in it that you don't get in the movie for the elves and Joe, the homeless boy that befriends Santa Claus. And there's also some scenes from an earlier version of the script that didn't make it into the movie that are also in the comic adaptation. Santa Claus the movie actually had McDonald's Happy Meals, and being on a Happy Meal back then was a pretty big deal. The box was absolutely gorgeous and showed different rooms in the elf village, and you could fold it out and make a backdrop out of it. And you had little cutout figurines you could make from the box of Santa Claus, his wife Anya, and one of the reindeer. And of course, every Happy Meal has a prize, and so they actually included little books with the Happy Meals, and they had 2 activity books and 2 storybooks. And the 2 storybooks were The Legend of Santa Claus and The Elves at the Top of the World. Both of them have minimal text, but a lot of pictures, and because of the slick paper of these books, it actually prints better than the storybook. Legend of Santa Claus is actually a pretty good brief summary of the origin of Santa Claus. Elves at the Top of the World is actually this cool visual tour of the elves' village and gives you an idea of what they do, and actually lets you see a lot of things you didn't get a good look at in the movie, like these drawings the elves did of the toys. And by the way, I saw that there was an elf in the movie named Groot, spelled just like the Marvel character, and I couldn't figure out who it was. But the storybook and Elves at the Top of the World both let us know it is indeed the cook we see briefly in the movie, and here he is in a minor cutscene that was also included in the comic book adaptation. So yes, he is Groot. Along with the Happy Meals, there was also this deer that was offered by McDonald's and Coca-Cola to promote the movie. And the promotions actually went both ways. There was product placement for both McDonald's and Coca-Cola in the movie, and that rubbed some critics the wrong way. Obviously, it is a little ironic with the themes in the movie. If you get the storybook or the comic adaptation, you actually won't see McDonald's or Coke in there. And of course, no big push for a blockbuster in the 80s is complete without your Marvel Comics adaptation. And so let's take a look at the comic here, starting with this gorgeous painted cover by Tom Palmer, which I think is one of the main reasons to pick this up. The cover is absolutely gorgeous. It has Santa Claus, of course, in the middle with all the major characters around him, and the likenesses are just spot on, and it's just such a wonderful cover. I honestly wish this would have been used to promote the movie, not just for the comic, because this would have been a great movie poster. It's just such an awesome image that perfectly captures the spirit of the movie. The artwork on the interior is by Frank Springer, and he's not what I would consider a likeness artist, but I don't think it really matters here. His artwork is quite good, and it's really about the storytelling. It's really about capturing what's happening in the story and in the film and kind of capturing those backgrounds and those characters, and I think he does an exquisite job of that. The artwork can be a little sketchy, but you have to remember all of the stuff he's having to draw here, because this is a huge movie with big visuals, hundreds of extras, and so a little bit of sketchiness to get all of that in the comic book panels is a worthy trade-off, and I think this comic does a great job of trying to capture all of those big visuals you got on the big screen. Sometimes the visuals don't match the movie. The characters will be wearing something different or doing something different than they were on screen. So for instance, Joe the homeless kid should be warming himself beside of a garbage can bonfire, and he's not. And because the comic is only 64 pages long, they did have to leave out some stuff and simplify some stuff to fit it all in there. However, there is some additional things in here that were not in the movie since they're working off an earlier script. Some of this is just additional elf puns. So for instance, when Patch leaves the North Pole, Dooley says that Santa shouldn't worry about him. He can take care of himself. He knows the art of elf defense. Yeah, maybe we weren't missing much there. However, there are several scenes here that do help the movie make more sense that weren't included in the movie. One of them involves Santa coming back from his first Christmas delivery in modern times that we see, and he's unusually tired, and we don't know why, but in the comic book they explain that maneuvering between skyscrapers and figuring out the wind currents and jumbo jets made controlling the reindeer much more difficult, and that's why he was tired. And it goes into the theme of Santa Claus trying to adjust to modern times. Another weird scene in the movie was where Santa Claus seemed really down on himself when he saw Joe for the second time. This was the Christmas Eve where Patch was delivering his gift to the kids, the Puce Pops. So in the comic, they showed that he'd just seen that people had taken down their Christmas lights and replaced it with puce-colored lights for Patch. Though I'll also note that that particular bit wasn't included in the storybook, and it just said he was bummed about having to compete with Patch. And so after that night, he says that he's not even sure if Christmas works anymore, and he's totally defeated. And the reason for that is that he comes across these kids who have thrown away his presents, and they say that Santa Claus is a loser and he gives lame presents. And what really kills it, though, is when he asks them, what did they give this Christmas? And they don't even know what he's talking about. And that's just like a knife in the heart for Santa Claus. And this was a scene that spoke directly to the themes of the movie of generosity and gratitude versus greed and selfishness that really should have been in there. And one more scene that did not make the cut, but absolutely should have, is that Joe asked Santa Claus to adopt him at the end. This is a perfect ending for Joe because he's a homeless orphan, but also for Santa and his wife who were childless, and that's how they got into gift giving back when they were human. And so this is just a wonderful wrap up for all those characters and would have been absolutely perfect. One note is that the storybook actually has Cornelia actually asking Santa Claus to adopt her too. And here it's changed to something closer to the movie where she just asked to stay until next Christmas. I think overall, this is a good movie adaptation, definitely worth picking up if you have any interest or affection for this movie. The cover is fantastic, and the extra bits of story we didn't get on the big screen definitely improve the story. It doesn't turn it into a Christmas classic or anything like that, but it definitely makes what was already there so much better. And so, just to give my quick personal thoughts on the movie, I did see it when I was like 7 or 8, and I was hoping to get this kind of folklore, mythical tale of Santa. I wanted just pure fantasy. That was my draw for the movie. And you did get some of that at the beginning, but I can't imagine being particularly happy that so much of the movie involved an evil businessman trying to steal Christmas with magic candy. However, as an adult watching this movie, I will say I was engaged and entertained for the vast majority of its runtime. I found the last 20 minutes or so with the glowing candy canes at the end to be kind of silly, and it just felt like it was trying to cram a bunch of movie tropes into the movie, like kidnapping and chasing and explosions, when it really should have been focusing on the themes of the movie. It really needed more of a Grinch Stole Christmas sort of moment at the end where people rediscover the spirit of Christmas. But even if it's not perfect, it doesn't stop it from being entertaining and worth watching. I mean, He-Man She-Ra Christmas special isn't perfect either, but I watch that every year, and I probably will be adding this to my yearly Christmas rituals as well. And one last little odd side note about the legacy of the movie is that if you watched a commercial for the Radio City Christmas Spectacular, they always end it with the footage of Santa Claus flying over New York from the movie. And if you're interested in the movie, I definitely recommend picking it up on DVD because then you get the director's commentary and a 50-minute behind the scenes documentary about how they made this thing, which is pretty impressive. All right, that's it. And for all the elves watching out there, if you ever have a falling out with Santa Claus, don't worry, you can go freelance and be elf employed. Maybe we needed more elf puns in there. Like and subscribe for more videos. And until next time, see ya.